What do you can this time? I will arrest you. Now. 1. Save you! Get out of the car, now!
I haven't done anything.
I was 3 months away from becoming a doctor. 3 months. 90 days. I had the acceptance letter. The full scholarship, the white coat with my name already ordered. Dr. Isaiah Carter. My mother, who worked 2 jobs her entire life, who buried 1 son and refused to bury another, cried when I told her. Real tears. The first tears I'd seen since my brother's funeral. I'd done everything right. Perfect grades, perfect record, perfect future. And then on a Friday night in May, a police officer pulled me over for a broken taillight. 30 minutes later, I was in handcuffs. 4 months later, I was sitting in a courtroom, watching my entire future disintegrate in front of me. I didn't commit a crime. I didn't break the law. I didn't even know there were drugs in the car I was driving. But none of that mattered. Because in America, being innocent and being black aren't always enough to save you. This is the story of how one traffic stop, one encounter that lasted less than 30 minutes, destroyed everything I'd spent. 26 years building, and if you think this can't happen to you or someone you love, you're not paying attention. There are moments that divide your life into before and after. Moments so profound that everything that comes afterward is measured against them. Moments that change not just your circumstances, but your understanding of who you are in the world. This is the story of Isaiah Carter, a 26-year-old with a full scholarship to medical school, a young man who'd overcome poverty, violence, and loss to build a future his family could be proud of. A man who was 3 months away from becoming a doctor, and this is the story of how one traffic stop, one encounter that lasted less than 30 minutes, destroyed everything he'd spent a lifetime building. This isn't a story about guilt or innocence in the traditional sense. It's a story about a system that sees some people as threats before it sees them as human, about how quickly dreams can shatter when they're built on foundations that others can undermine with a single decision. But it's also a story about what happens after the breaking, about whether you can rebuild, about whether the dream was ever truly yours to begin with. Isaiah's story will make you angry. It will make you sad. But most importantly, it will make you question everything you thought you knew about justice, opportunity, and the American dream. Isaiah Carter grew up in East Riverside, a neighborhood that people driving through locked their car doors to pass, a place where gunshots were as common as birdsong, where corner stores had bulletproof glass and liquor stores outnumbered grocery stores 3-to-1. His mother, Gloria, worked 2 jobs, morning shift at a hospital cafeteria, evening shift cleaning office buildings downtown. His father had left when Isaiah was 4. He had vague memories of a man with kind eyes and restless energy, but mostly he remembered his absence. Isaiah had an older brother, Marcus. Growing up, Marcus was his hero. 6 years older, Marcus was the one who taught Isaiah to tie his shoes, to ride a bike, to throw a football. Marcus was smart, funny, protective. He had dreams of becoming an engineer, but Marcus never made it out of East Riverside. At 19, he was shot in a case of mistaken identity, wrong place. Wrong red jacket, wrong face in a neighborhood where being young and black made you a target for both criminals and police. Isaiah was 13 when Marcus died. He stood at his brother's funeral in a suit that was too big for him, borrowed from a cousin, and made a promise. He would do what Marcus never got the chance to do. He would get out. He would make something of himself. He would make his brother's death mean something. His mother never recovered from losing Marcus. The light went out of her eyes. She worked even more hours, as if exhaustion could fill the hole her firstborn had left. She barely spoke at home, moved through life like a ghost. But when Isaiah brought home straight A's, when he won the science fair in 8th grade, when he was accepted to the district's magnet high school, those were the only times Gloria smiled. Really smiled. "You're going to be somebody," she'd whisper, holding his report card like it was made of gold. "You're going to be everything Marcus should have been." It was a heavy burden. Being the hope of a grieving mother, being the living memorial to a dead brother, But Isaiah carried it. He excelled in high school. Perfect attendance. Honor roll every semester. Captain of the debate team. Volunteer at the community center where he tutored younger kids. He worked part-time at a bookstore to help his mother with bills. College applications came, and with them, a miracle, a full scholarship to State University. Pre-med track. Everything paid for, tuition, books, room and board, everything. Isaiah's mother cried when the acceptance letter came. Real tears. The first tears Isaiah had seen from her since Marcus's funeral. "My baby's going to be a doctor," she said, holding him tight. Marcus would be so proud. College was hard. Harder than Isaiah had imagined. Not academically, he could handle the coursework. But culturally, socially, he was one of 12 black students in a pre-med program of 200. He was the only one from a neighborhood like East Riverside. His classmates talked casually about their summer homes, their study abroad programs, their parents who were doctors and lawyers and executives. Isaiah worked in the campus library 20 hours a week and sent money home to his mother. He studied while others partied. He stayed in while others traveled. He sacrificed everything for the dream, and it was working. By senior year, Isaiah had a 3.9 GPA. He'd conducted research on cardiovascular disease in underserved communities. He'd volunteered at free clinics. His MCAT scores were in the 95th percentile. He applied to 15 medical schools, got into 3, chose Eastwood Medical School, one of the top programs in the country. Another full scholarship, another miracle. "I made it, Mom," he told Gloria on the phone, his voice breaking. "I actually made it." "I knew you would, baby," she said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. "I always knew." Isaiah's acceptance letter sat on his mother's mantle like a shrine. She showed it to everyone, neighbors, co-workers, the cashier at the grocery store. Her son was going to be a doctor. Isaiah was scheduled to start medical school in August. It was now May. 3 months, 12 weeks, 90 days. He had already found an apartment near campus. Had already bought his textbooks, used to save money, but still. Had already attended orientation. Had already imagined himself in a white coat with his name embroidered on the pocket. Dr. Isaiah Carter. Everything was perfect. Everything was finally impossibly perfect. It was a Friday night in late May. Isaiah had just finished his last day at his campus job. Graduation was in 2 weeks. He was going home to East Riverside for the weekend to see his mother, to pack up some of his old things, to say goodbye to the neighborhood that had shaped him. He borrowed his roommate's car, a 10-year-old Honda Civic with a dent in the back bumper and a check engine light that had been on for 6 months. His own car had died sophomore year, and he'd never had money to replace it. "Drive safe," his roommate Jake said, tossing him the keys. "And hey, congrats again, man, Dr. Carter, that's insane." Isaiah grinned. He still couldn't quite believe it either. The drive from campus to East Riverside took about 45 minutes on the highway. Isaiah had made it dozens of times over the past 4 years. He knew every exit, every landmark, every stretch of road. He put on music, old hip-hop that reminded him of Marcus, and let himself dream. In 3 months, he'd be in anatomy class, learning to save lives, becoming the person his brother never got to be. It was 9:47 p.m. when Isaiah exited the highway. Just 10 more minutes to his mother's apartment. He was thinking about her cooking, about sleeping in his old bed, about the comfortable familiarity of home. That's when he saw the red and blue lights in his rearview mirror. Isaiah's stomach dropped. That old familiar feeling, the one every black man knows, the one his mother had warned him about 1,000 times. "If you're ever pulled over," she'd said, "keep your hands on the wheel. Do everything they say. Don't argue. Don't explain. Just survive, baby. Just come home." Isaiah pulled over to the side of the road, turned off the music, rolled down his window, placed both hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, where they could be clearly seen. His heart was pounding. Why was his heart pounding? He hadn't done anything wrong. He was 3 miles over the speed limit, maybe. The taillight might be out. Jake's car was always having issues. But nothing serious. Nothing that should make him this afraid. Yet he was. Terrified. The officer approached, white, maybe late 30s. with a military-style crew cut and aviator sunglasses even though it was nearly 10 at night. License and registration, the officer said. No greeting. No explanation for the stop. Yes, sir, Isaiah said, his voice steady despite his racing pulse. My license is in my wallet in my back pocket. The registration is in the glove compartment. I'm going to reach for them now. He moved slowly, carefully, announced every action like his mother had taught him. He handed over the documents. The officer studied them with a flashlight. This your car? The officer asked. No, sir. It belongs to my roommate, Jake Henderson. I borrowed it for the weekend. Why? The question caught Isaiah off guard. Why? Because his car was broken. Because he was a college student who couldn't afford repairs. Because his roommate was kind enough to lend him a vehicle. Why did he need to explain this? My car isn't working, sir. I'm just driving home to visit my mother. Where's home? East Riverside. About 10 minutes from here. The officer's expression changed subtly. Isaiah saw it, the slight narrowing of eyes, the shift in posture. East Riverside, a neighborhood with a reputation. Step out of the vehicle, the officer said. Sir, can I ask what this stop is about? Step out of the vehicle, now. Isaiah's hands were shaking as he opened the door. He stepped out slowly, hands visible, making no sudden movements. Is there a problem, officer? Did I do something? Turn around. Hands on the vehicle. Sir, I really don't understand. Hands on the vehicle! Isaiah placed his hands on the hood of the car. The metal was still warm from the engine. The officer patted him down, roughly, thoroughly, invasively. Do you have anything illegal in this car? No, sir, nothing. Do you have weapons? Drugs? No, sir. I'm a college student. I'm on my way to visit my mother. I have textbooks in the back seat. That's all. A second police cruiser pulled up, then a third. What had started as a routine traffic stop now involved 6 officers. Isaiah felt his throat tighten. This was escalating. Fast. And he didn't understand why. We're going to search the vehicle, the first officer said. Do you have probable cause? Isaiah asked, then immediately regretted it. Never argue, his mother had said. But this was wrong. This was unconstitutional. Do you consent to a search? Do I have a choice? You can refuse. But if you refuse, that makes me think you have something to hide. It was a trap. Consent, and they'd search anyway. Refuse, and they'd call it suspicious behavior and search anyway. There was no right answer. I don't have anything to hide, Isaiah said quietly. But I'd like to know why that's not a yes or no answer. Do you consent? Isaiah thought about his mother. About medical school starting in 3 months. About playing this safe, playing this smart. Yes, he said. You can search the car. Isaiah stood on the side of the road, illuminated by headlights and flashing police lights, as 6 officers tore through Jake's car. They pulled out the seat cushions, opened every compartment, emptied the trunk. His duffel bag was unzipped, his clothes examined. His textbooks, organic chemistry, biology, physics, were flipped through as if they might contain contraband. College boy, huh? One officer said, holding up his biology textbook. The tone was mocking, disbelieving. Yes, sir. I graduate in 2 weeks. I'm starting medical school in August. The officer smirked. Medical school, sure. Isaiah felt something crack inside him. His whole life, he'd been told that education was the way out. That if he worked hard enough, studied hard enough, achieved enough, he'd be treated differently. He'd transcend the stereotypes. He'd be seen as an individual, not a statistic. But standing here, watching police officers destroy the interior of a borrowed car while treating him like a criminal, Isaiah understood. It didn't matter. None of it mattered. Not his GPA, not his acceptance letters, not his dreams. He was still just a black man in a beat-up car, driving through the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time. Sir, Isaiah tried again, I really need to get to my mother's house. She's expecting me. If I could just, you'll leave when we say you can leave. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. Cars drove by slowly, passengers gawking at the scene. Isaiah recognized some faces, people from the neighborhood. He wondered what they thought. Wondered if they recognized him. Wondered if they assumed he'd done something to deserve this. Then one officer called out from the trunk. Hey, got something here. Isaiah's blood went cold. What? He said. That's impossible. There's nothing. The officer emerged holding a small plastic bag. Even in the dim light, Isaiah could see what looked like a white powdery substance inside. "That's not mine," Isaiah said immediately, his voice rising in panic. "I've never seen that before. I don't do drugs. I don't even drink." "That car belongs to my roommate. Turn around," the first officer commanded. "Hands behind your back." "No, wait, please, you have to listen to me. I'm pre-med. I have a full scholarship to medical school. I've never been arrested. I've never even had a speeding ticket. That's not mine. Please." But the handcuffs were already clicking shut around his wrists. "You have the right to remain silent." The Miranda rights washed over Isaiah like white noise. He couldn't focus, couldn't breathe. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not when he was so close. "Please," Isaiah said, and he hated how his voice cracked. "Please, just call my roommate, Jake Henderson. He'll tell you. He'll explain. You can sort that out at the station." They put Isaiah in the back of a police cruiser. Through the window, he watched them tow Jake's car, watched his duffel bag get thrown into evidence bags, watched his dream disappear in red and blue lights. Isaiah called his mother from the police station at 11:43 p.m. "Baby?" Gloria answered immediately, her voice thick with sleep. "Are you here? I made your favorite—" "Mom," his voice broke. "Mom, I've been arrested." The sound she made was something Isaiah would never forget. Not a scream, not a cry. Something deeper, more primal. The sound of a mother who'd already lost one son and couldn't bear to lose another. "What happened? Isaiah, what happened?" "I don't know. They pulled me over. They searched Jake's car. They found drugs. Mom, they found drugs and they're not mine. I swear to God, they're not mine." "Where are you?" "East Riverside Police Station. District 7. I'm coming." "Baby, don't say anything. Don't talk to anyone. Wait for me." Isaiah spent the night in a holding cell. The charges: possession of cocaine with intent to distribute. Intent to distribute. Because the amount, barely 3 grams, was apparently just over the threshold that separated simple possession from dealer-level charges. The difference between a misdemeanor and a felony, between a mistake and a destroyed life. Isaiah sat on a metal bench in a cell that smelled like urine and desperation and tried to understand how this had happened. The drugs weren't his. He'd never touched cocaine in his life, never even seen it in person. He'd spent college studying in the library while his classmates experimented with party drugs. He'd been too focused, too driven, too aware that he couldn't afford to screw up. So how? The only answer was Jake's car. But Jake wasn't a drug dealer. He was a computer science major who played video games and ate too much pizza. He was privileged and naive and sometimes careless, but not criminal. Maybe someone at a party left something in the car. Maybe it had been there for months, forgotten in the trunk. Maybe it didn't matter. The drugs had been found in a car Isaiah was driving. That made them his problem now. Gloria arrived at dawn. She'd taken a taxi, $20 they couldn't afford, and brought a lawyer. Not an expensive defense attorney, just a public defender she'd begged to come early. A tired-looking woman named Ms. Patricia Rodriguez who carried a coffee cup the size of her head and had kind eyes. "Tell me everything," Ms. Rodriguez said. Isaiah told her. The stop, the search, the discovery, the arrest. His voice was hoarse from a night of not sleeping, of replaying every moment, of trying to find where he'd gone wrong. "Did they have probable cause for the search?" Ms. Rodriguez asked. I consented. She closed her eyes briefly. "Why?" "Because I thought if I cooperated, if I had nothing to hide, it would be okay. I thought," his voice broke, "I thought doing the right thing would protect me." "Isaiah," Ms. Rodriguez said gently, "you're young and educated and you've never been in the system before. So I need you to understand something. The system isn't designed to protect people like you. It's designed to process you. And once you're in it, it's very, very hard to get out. But I didn't do anything wrong. That may not matter." Gloria made a sound like she'd been punched. Ms. Rodriguez explained the situation with brutal honesty. The drugs had been found in a car Isaiah was driving. Even if they weren't his, proving that would be difficult. It would be Isaiah's word against the physical evidence, against 6 police officers who would testify that he was nervous, evasive, suspicious. "What about Jake?" Isaiah asked desperately. My roommate. He'll testify. He'll explain that the drugs might have been his, Ms. Rodriguez said. Even if he was willing to do that, and he might not be, it wouldn't necessarily help you. You were in possession of the vehicle. That's what matters legally, so what do? Ms. Rodriguez hesitated. The prosecutor will likely offer a plea deal. You plead guilty to a lesser charge, simple possession maybe. You'd get probation, community service, possibly a suspended sentence. You'd have a record, but you wouldn't go to prison. But I'm not guilty, I know. But if this goes to trial, if you lose, you could be facing 3 to 5 years. Mandatory minimum sentencing for intent to distribute. The room spun. 3 to 5 years. Medical school started in 3 months. His scholarship wouldn't wait. His slot wouldn't be held. His dream. And there's something else, Ms. Rodriguez continued. Your medical school, they'll find out about this arrest. They'll likely defer your admission pending the outcome. And even if you're found not guilty, even if the charges are dropped, having an arrest record can affect your medical license application. No, Isaiah whispered. No, that can't. I'm sorry, Ms. Rodriguez said. I really am. Gloria was crying, silent tears streaming down her face. Isaiah had seen his mother cry twice in his life. At Marcus's funeral, and when Isaiah got into medical school now, sitting in a police station meeting room at 6:37 a.m., she cried for her second son's future dying before it had truly begun. Isaiah was released on bail, $5,000 that Gloria borrowed from her church community, money she'd be repaying for years. He went home to his childhood apartment, sat in his old room with its peeling wallpaper and posters of scientists he'd idolized. Neil deGrasse Tyson, Mae Jemison, Ben Carson, people who'd made it out, people who'd overcome. His phone was filled with messages. From Jake, horrified and apologetic, swearing he had no idea how drugs got in his car, offering to do anything to help. From college friends, shocked and confused. From his advisor at school, carefully worded, expressing concern about his situation. And one from Eastwood Medical School. Subject line: regarding your admission status. Isaiah stared at it for 20 minutes before opening it. Dear Mr. Carter, it has come to our attention that you are facing pending criminal charges. In accordance with our admission policies, we must defer your matriculation pending the resolution of these charges. We understand this is a difficult situation, and we encourage you to keep us informed of any developments. Sincerely, Office of Admissions, deferred, not expelled, not rejected, just waiting. His entire future on pause because of something he didn't do. Isaiah thought about Marcus. About the promise he'd made at 13 years old, standing in an oversized suit at his brother's funeral. He'd promised to make it out, to be somebody, to make Marcus's death mean something. And now at 26, 3 months away from achieving everything he'd worked for, it was all slipping away. Ms. Rodriguez called 3 days later with the prosecutor's offer. Plead guilty to simple possession, accept 1-year probation and 50 hours community service. And the felony charge would be dropped to a misdemeanor. What happens to medical school? Isaiah asked. A misdemeanor is better than a felony. Some medical boards might still grant a license with a misdemeanor on your record, especially for a non-violent drug offense, especially if you can prove rehabilitation. But she paused. It's not guaranteed. And some states won't license doctors with any drug-related convictions. And if I fight it, if I go to trial, you could win. If we can create reasonable doubt about who the drugs belonged to, if we can show that you had no knowledge they were in the vehicle, if the jury believes you, you could walk away with nothing on your record. But you could also lose. And if you lose, you're facing years in prison. Definitely no medical school. Probably no medical license ever. It was an impossible choice. Accept guilt for something you didn't do. Take the safer path and maybe salvage something of your dream. Or fight for your innocence, risk everything, and potentially lose it all anyway. I need to think, Isaiah said. He drove back to campus in a rental car he couldn't afford, because Jake's car was still impounded. He walked through the quad where he'd spent 4 years studying, past the library where he'd pulled countless all-nighters, past the science building where he'd fallen in love with medicine. He thought about all the sacrifices, his mother working 2 jobs, his own teenage years spent studying instead of living, the weight of carrying his dead brother's dreams along with his own. And he thought about what Marcus would say if he were here. Marcus, who never got the chance to fight for his future. Who died because someone made an assumption about who he was based on what he looked like. Isaiah called Ms. Rodriguez. "I want to fight," he said. "I want to go to trial." There was a long pause. "Isaiah, I have to advise you. I know the risks. I know I could lose everything. But if I plead guilty to something I didn't do, I've already lost. I've already accepted that the system can punish me for existing. And I can't," his voice broke. "I can't live with that. I have to fight." "Okay," Ms. Rodriguez said softly. "Okay, then we fight." The trial took place 4 months later. Isaiah had spent the summer in limbo, not a student anymore, not yet a doctor, not quite a criminal, but not quite innocent either. He'd stayed with his mother in East Riverside, worked part-time at the community center where he used to tutor, watched his former classmates move on with their lives, graduate school, jobs, futures unfolding exactly as planned. His medical school slot had been given to someone else. The scholarship, too. Eastwood had sent a letter expressing hope that he could reapply once his legal situation was resolved. But everyone knew what that meant. Unlikely. But they had to say something polite. The trial lasted 3 days. The prosecution presented their case. 6 police officers testifying that Isaiah was nervous during the stop, that his story about borrowing the car seemed suspicious, that the drugs were found in the trunk in a location consistent with someone trying to hide them. They painted a picture of a young man from a troubled neighborhood who'd gotten involved with drugs despite his educational opportunities. A cautionary tale about squandered potential. The defense presented Jake, who testified that the car was his, that he sometimes lent it to friends, that he had no idea how the drugs got there, but they certainly weren't Isaiah's. He broke down on the stand, crying, saying he'd never forgive himself for what his carelessness had cost his friend. They presented Isaiah's academic records, his medical school acceptance letter, character witnesses, professors, employers, neighbors, all testifying to his integrity, his work ethic, his dedication to serving others. Ms. Rodriguez argued that the drugs could have belonged to anyone who'd been in that car over the past months. That there was no evidence, no fingerprints, no text messages, no witnesses connecting Isaiah to drug use or dealing. That the prosecution's entire case rested on the fact that Isaiah was driving a car that happened to contain drugs he knew nothing about. Isaiah testified in his own defense. He told his story about Marcus, about his mother, about the promise he'd made to escape the cycle of violence and poverty, about his dream of becoming a doctor, about how he'd sacrificed everything for that dream. "I have never used drugs," Isaiah said, looking directly at the jury. "I have never sold drugs. I was 3 months away from starting medical school, 3 months away from achieving everything I'd worked my entire life for. Why would I throw that away? What possible reason would I have to risk everything for 3 grams of cocaine I didn't even know existed?" It was a good question. The prosecutor didn't have a good answer, just insinuations about people from certain neighborhoods and certain backgrounds who sometimes made poor choices. The jury deliberated for 8 hours. When they returned, Isaiah stood beside Ms. Rodriguez, his mother behind him in the gallery, and held his breath as the forewoman read the verdict. "On the charge of possession with intent to distribute, we find the defendant not guilty." The courtroom erupted. Gloria sobbed. Ms. Rodriguez grabbed Isaiah's hand and squeezed it hard. Isaiah felt his knees buckle with relief. Not guilty, free, vindicated. But as the celebration died down, as reality settled in, Isaiah realized something. The verdict might have cleared his name legally, but it couldn't erase the past 4 months. It couldn't give him back his medical school slot. It couldn't undo the stigma of being arrested, of being tried, of being a black man accused of a drug crime. He was innocent, but he'd still lost everything. Isaiah reapplied to medical schools the following year. He was accepted to 3 programs, but none offered the scholarship he'd had before. He'd have to take out loans, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to achieve the dream that had once been fully funded. He's currently in his 2nd year of medical school now. He still carries the weight of what happened, still flinches when he sees police lights, still feels the ghost of handcuffs on his wrists sometimes, but he's also still here, still fighting, still refusing to let one traffic stop define the rest of his life. His mother keeps his acceptance letter, both the original and the new one, on her mantle. She tells everyone her son is going to be a doctor, and she's right. But Isaiah knows something now that he didn't know before. He knows that innocence isn't protection. That hard work isn't armor. That being one of the good ones doesn't exempt you from a system designed to see you as guilty first. He also knows that he's one of the lucky ones. Lucky that he could afford bail. Lucky that he had a lawyer who believed him. Lucky that the jury saw past their biases and acquitted him. Lucky that he got a second chance at his dream, even if it came at a much higher cost. Most people in his situation don't get that lucky. Isaiah's story isn't about a happy ending. It's about survival, about the resilience it takes to rebuild after everything is torn down, about the question that haunts him every day. How many other innocent people are sitting in cells right now, their dreams destroyed by a system that presumed their guilt? The answer keeps him up at night, and it's the reason he's chosen to specialize in emergency medicine, to work in communities like East Riverside, to serve the people most likely to encounter the same system that nearly destroyed him. One traffic stop didn't destroy Isaiah's dream, but it transformed it, complicated it, made him understand that being a doctor isn't just about healing bodies. It's about fighting for a world where everyone gets the chance to dream in the first place. And that fight, Isaiah knows, will last much longer than medical school ever could.